Hello again and welcome back to the PhatPhish Guitar Studio, where today I'm going to be answering a question that was sent in by Rob. Rob's question. Liked your video, thank you very much, not sure which one you're commenting on, but liked your video and I'm deciding between a Squier Classic Vibe 50 Stratocaster versus an entry Fender standard and made in Mexico Stratocaster. Roughly $200 difference, many specs were identical and great reviews for both. Thoughts? Okay, good question. The Fender made in Mexico standard Strat I'm very familiar with. This is a standard Fender Strat made in Mexico. Changed the plastic wear on it and a few other little bits and bobs, but it's pretty much a stock guitar. And the Squier Classic Vibe, price wise a little bit more expensive than you might think. Like Rob says, there's $200 price difference. I'm guessing those are dollars US. I'm in the UK, and there is a similar sort of price difference over here between the Squier Classic Vibe and the Fender Standard Strat. The Squier brand traditionally has been sort of like Fender's budget entry-level range, but as the years have gone by and Fender have expanded their range, you've actually got quite a lot of spread just within the Squier range, from the basic Squier Affinity, which is the real entry-level budget stuff, through to the more expensive Classic Vibe. And I think so the Classic Vibe's the higher end Squier towards what Rob's calling like the entry level, the made in Mexico stuff that actually carries the Fender branding. Now some of that price difference is literally all about that. It's all about the name on the headstock. Generally a Fender branded instrument will carry a little bit more value because it's got more resale value. People are happier, I think, on the second-hand market to buy the Fender brand used than they are the Squier, excluding things like the early mid 80s the JV model Squiers, which are going for silly money nowadays. But the sort of stuff you can pick up in the shops, the Fender will probably hold its value a little bit more. So you're paying some of that up front. That's something I tend not to put too much emphasis on though when I'm considering a guitar, because I'm thinking about what you're going to be spending on a guitar that you're going to be playing. You're going to be probably keeping it for quite a while. And yes, you might be spending some money on that logo on the headstock to give you the resale value, but it's not you're not kind of not getting any of that value back while you're keeping the guitar. And I like to think of a guitar as a long-term investment. The Squier Classic Vibe is a very, very nice range of guitars. I was in a guitar store a few weeks ago and just wandering around, just having a bit of a browse, and one or two guitars really did kind of jump off the wall and catch my eye, and they were the Classic Vibe Strats. Something I really liked about them was they had like a sunburst, bit like that sort of finished sunburst with a tortoiseshell scratch plate, tortoiseshell effect, and it's a look that I really like. Slightly aged sort of hardware, very, very nice, aesthetically lovely. Rob is right, in terms of the specs on paper they are quite similar guitars. If you look at the spec sheet for the Squier against the spec sheet for the made in Mexico Fender Strat, on the face of it there's not a lot of difference between the two. Some things though might make a difference. The neck on the Fender has got a satin back. This particular one with the maple, it's a one-piece maple neck. They've got gloss on the headstock face and gloss on the fingerboard, but the back of the neck is a satin finish, which I find a lot more comfortable. In fact, I think all of my guitars bar one has got the satin neck. I much prefer it. The Classic Vibe, I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong because the Fender range is absolutely massive. There's just so many different guitars in there, so it's a little bit difficult to keep up. But the Squier, I think, is a gloss finish back. It's all polyurethane finish, but it's quite a thick poly lacquer on the back of the neck, and that can get, it's not possibly quite as comfortable to play straight off the bat, and that can get a little bit less slippy over time. You know, if you're playing it for a gig or something and your hands are sweating, the movement on the back of the neck is a little bit worse, I think, with a gloss finish neck. So because the neck plays such a huge part in how a guitar feels, I probably err towards the Fender rather than the Squier. What I'm going to do though is sort of like answer your question without actually giving you an answer, and that is to suggest that you go to a music store. Generally, if they carry Fender, they will carry Squier as well. Try a Squier Classic Vibe, try a Fender made in Mexico, and see how they actually feel for you. Because with guitars, for all these they're made in a factory, they're the wood, metal component parts bolted together. They're a lot more organic than some things you might buy. It's not like going and buying a washing machine or a fridge or some domestic appliance where you can just look at the spec sheet and say, yeah, this one's better than that one, that's the one I'm going to go for. Sometimes the guitar chooses you as much as you choose the guitar. So it's about being able to go to a store, play the guitar and see how it feels. The Squier guitars are made in the Far East, and the Fender made in Mexico are made in Mexico, as the name suggests. And this is where some of the economies come in. Chinese labour, and we're not talking slave labour or anything unethical here, it's just the general costs of labour and so on in the Far East are less than labour costs over in the West, and some of that is passed on in the final price ticket. That said, another place where costs are kept down is sometimes in quality control. So it's good to be able to pick up a guitar and actually play it and see how it feels, and make sure you're not getting one where something a little bit substandard has slipped through the quality control net. This is why I'd always advise you to go to a store and try the guitar out in person. Go to a bricks and mortar store with helpful assistants who will let you take your guitar off the wall, try it. If you want to try two guitars together, they'll let you take the two guitars and try them and see which one works best for you. Buying off of a big guitar store website might end up with something that costs less, but there might be something about it which makes it less playable, and to be honest, at the end of the day, that's a false economy. Would you rather spend $300, £300, whatever, on a guitar that when you get it in the mail it's not as comfortable as you'd like and it ends up not being played, as opposed to maybe paying £400, $400, whatever, for a guitar that actually feels lovely and you want to keep it, and it'll inspire you and you'll be creative with it and it'll be part of your musical life for years to come. It really is worth trying the guitar and making sure you can kind of bond with it before you buy. In terms of component parts, I think the parts in the Fender will be a little bit better. One thing you can always consider doing with something like a Strat, which is very, very component based, is longer term you can think about changing parts. And something I know a lot of people do is use it as a platform for modification. Both the Squier and the Fender, they're not super expensive guitars, so you're not going to worry too much about taking a screwdriver to them and doing little changes to bits and bobs on them. Particularly, quite a common thing is to change the pickups. Now, I think the pickups on the Made in Mexico Strat compared to the ones on the Squier Classic Vibe, you will find a difference in sound. I think the Classic Vibe is possibly a slightly lower output, more vintagey sort of sound, while the pickups on the Made in Mexico are by no means a high output pickup. They're still a Strat, so they're, relatively low output compared to something like a humbucker. The pickups certainly in this guitar do have a little bit more gain to them compared to some of the Strats that I've played. So the fundamental thing is, how does the guitar sound to you, and is this something you're going to consider possibly changing the pickups and putting in a set like Seymour Duncan's or something for the Fender custom shop that's going to give you something like a better sound, or something that you prefer. One thing that sometimes bothers people about, going back to the name on the headstock, is that you'll be judged by the brand name on there, that in some way Squier branding is less prestigious than Fender. I can kind of see where people come from with that, but you need to think a little bit about who it is that's going to be looking at your guitar. The majority of the people who consume music don't play guitar. They don't care about brands. They just want to hear you, and it should be your playing that has the impression on people, rather than people looking at a name on a headstock. Amongst guitarists, yes, they're more aware of the brand, but to be honest, if a guitarist is looking at you and judging you just by the brand on the headstock, then they're the ones that are the problem and not you. And if you think that by having a different brand name on the headstock it'll somehow make you a better guitarist than it would if you had a cheaper brand name on the headstock, to be honest, you need to reevaluate your thinking. What's important is how you play. If the guitar feels right for you, it's comfortable to play and it sounds good, then it doesn't matter so much what's on the headstock. You know, I've seen a lot of good guitarists over the years who play really well, and they actually do use Squiers, perhaps not as the main instrument, they've got it as a backup. If they've got a set where they play with like different tunings or whatever, then the second guitar is a Squier with a set of replacement pickups, and it plays really, really well. I mean, this Fender here has got, I think, possibly this is my second favourite neck of all the guitars I've ever owned. Very, very comfortable, it looks nice and so on. But I've also got, it's been modded to oblivion, but underneath it all, that's a Squier body with a Squier neck, and that feels wonderful to play. And I've, lent it to guitarists who've played, £1,000 plus custom shop instruments and so on, and they picked it up and think, wow, this is a really, really nice neck. So there's nothing fundamentally wrong with the Squier brand. It's just one of those things in life, you get what you pay for in terms of build quality, component parts or whatever. But for where you are in the price range, Rob, between the Squier Classic Vibe and the Made in Mexico standard Strat, you're actually in a fairly similar ballpark. It's not like you're comparing something like a Made in Mexico standard Strat against something from the Fender custom shop. The two guitars that you're comparing are a little bit closer. So it comes down to which one is right for you. Go to a bricks and mortar store, try the two out. I think you'll be surprised actually with the Classic Vibe if you're happy with the feel of the neck. Like I said, I think it's got a gloss finish neck rather than the satin. I think because of that, as they call it, the Classic Vibe, it's a little bit more, so not relict, but it's like more vintagey sort of feel to it, I think, and that might be something that you can pick up and instantly feel more comfortable with than something like the Fender Made in Mexico, which is it is pristine and new, and whilst it's not that you can't pick it up and it feels like an engaging guitar, I think it might be a little not distant, but something that it doesn't want to be bought. Personally, in my experience, this didn't feel like a guitar that instantly wanted to be bonded with. Over time, it is lovely, and it's a guitar that I will happily pick up in preference to some other more expensive, more luxurious whatever guitars. Either the Squier, for where you are in your budget, I think the Squier Classic Vibe or the Made in Mexico would serve you well. It's got to be your choice, though. It's got to be personal preference. So get yourself down to a music store, try the two out, and don't have any prejudices about one name on the headstock being better than the other, because that shouldn't be the case. So I hope you found that useful. I didn't particularly answer your question, but hopefully I've given you a few things to consider, and you'll go down to the music store and make a choice and come away with an instrument that you want to play, and it will inspire you, and you'll be creative with it, and it'll be with you for years to come. Let me know how you get on, either in the comment section down there or drop me a message. As always, if you've got any questions of your own that you want to send me, or suggest something for a future video, then if you go here, there's a form where, like Rob, you can just send in your question and I'll try and address it in a future video. If you like this, then please do click on the like button down there. If you really liked it, there's also a subscribe button, so please click on that. You can see any future videos that I post on YouTube. As ever, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in another video next time. Bye for now.